This is Mount Rushmore, the massive presidential monument carved into stone in America over 100 years ago. A group of miners with almost no artistic experience managed to create these world-famous giant sculptures using nothing more than simple pneumatic drills on a vertical cliff face. But how did they accomplish such an engineering miracle? In the early 1920s, the newly established state of South Dakota desperately wanted to increase its national recognition. The state government invited sculptor Gutzon Borglum to create a monument that would capture the world's attention. After months of geological surveys, he selected Mount Rushmore, a cliff made of fine-grained granite that looked like a perfectly prepared canvas sculpted by nature itself. In 1925, Borglum arrived in the mountains carrying presidential portrait references and a 1:12 scale model. This marked the beginning of a carving project that would push the limits of physics and engineering. At the time, the construction site was incredibly primitive. There were no roads leading to the cliffs and no electricity. The first challenge was simply conquering the 150-meter vertical rock wall. By the summer of 1927, workers had finally built a winding mountain transport route. A fully functional construction camp quickly appeared at the foot of the mountain, complete with workshops, blacksmith forges, storage areas, and living quarters. Steel stairways, heavy load cable systems, and summit elevator platforms were also installed. The carving of George Washington was the first to begin. Demolition teams used carefully placed explosives to strip away outer layers of rock, slowly revealing the rough egg-shaped foundation beneath. The real challenge came afterward. Workers had to operate 30-kilogram compressed air drills while hanging from the side of the cliff. The pneumatic drilling system was powered by 3 giant air compressors located at the base of the mountain. Through 600 meters of high-pressure pipelines, compressed air was sent to the summit, allowing up to 16 drills to run continuously at the same time. For earlier monuments, Borglum had used large projectors to trace designs onto stone, but Mount Rushmore was far too large for that method. Instead, he modernized an ancient Greek point measurement technique. A rotating metal measuring arm was installed on the mountaintop to create a 3-dimensional coordinate system. Measurements from the scale model were converted into full-size coordinates with centimeter-level precision, including exact horizontal and vertical angles for every carving point. Workers then used a honeycomb drilling method, drilling more than 300 holes per square meter to form a dense grid. The remaining rock between the holes was broken away with hammers. Suspended 150 meters above the ground for 8 hours a day, workers earned only 50 cents daily, yet managed to advance the sculpture by around 30 centimeters per day. Over the following years, the rough outlines of the presidential faces gradually emerged, but the most difficult part of the sculpture was the eyes. Traditional Greek statues often had smooth, lifeless eyes. To make the eyes appear realistic and reflective, Borglum carved deep cavities so the eyes would remain in shadow. Then he left a small 5-centimeter square of polished stone at the center of each pupil. The contrast between light and shadow created the illusion of deep, living irises. This was an extremely dangerous process because workers had to descend directly into the eye sockets. One mistake could have caused the entire structure to collapse, but the final effect was stunning. When sunlight crossed the granite surface, the statues seemed to stare directly into the soul. The project lasted 14 years. In total, workers used 450 tons of explosives and removed around 450,000 cubic tons of granite, an amount compared to several Great Pyramids of Giza. Yet behind the engineering triumph lay deep cultural conflict. The Lakota people viewed the monument as a desecration of sacred land. Native American groups criticized the monument because George Washington had encouraged military campaigns that destroyed dozens of indigenous villages in 1779, and 3 of the 4 presidents depicted had signed policies forcing Native Americans from their lands. When Borglum's tools finally fell silent in 1941, Mount Rushmore stood completed, a monument that combined extraordinary engineering achievement with the painful legacy of colonization. It ultimately became one of the most complex national symbols